John Paul II had, I would call, a heroic idea of the priesthood.
Yeah.
The priest is the servant of the servants of God. That's not just a title for the Pope. The priesthood exists to sanctify and empower the people of God to be the missionary disciples they were baptized to be. And I think from his Krakowian experience, both during the Second World War and during the communist period, he saw priests as defenders of the rights of their people. So he had a very high notion of the priesthood. Now, he was also deeply influenced in his own ministry by the example of St. John Vianney. He said early on in his priestly life that, like John Vianney, he was going to be a prisoner of the confessional. I think he was formed into a dynamic young priest really in cooperation with these university students that he gathered around himself at the parish of St. Florian in Krakow. As he was forming them into mature Christian adults, they were forming him into a dynamic priest, and he was getting an insight existentially, if you will, into the challenges faced by lay Catholics in what in those days, of course, were very difficult circumstances. So where does that leave us with seminaries? I think he, as he wrote in the Apostolic Exhortation Pastoris Dabo Vobis, we have many forms of formation. There is human formation, there's spiritual formation, there's intellectual formation, liturgical formation. All of these have to work together, but the foundation of all of that is human formation. You want mature adults entering the priesthood. And then you want mature adults who are radically converted Christian disciples. I mean, if I were a vocation director, the first question I would ask a guy coming in, and I think this is in the JP2 model, is not when did this idea of becoming a priest enter your head? It would be, when did you become a friend of Jesus Christ? Tell me about that. Tell me about your life as a missionary disciple already, and then we'll talk about the priesthood as a way to express that. I think that's particularly important in the United States today. We have a fine college seminary in the Archdiocese of Washington, where I live, St. John Paul II Seminary. And I gave a talk to these guys, I don't know, a couple of years ago maybe.
Yeah.
And I said to them, if you don't understand that you're entering a missionary vocation, leave now. You'll save yourself and the rest of us a lot of trouble. You're going to have to go out and recruit a congregation and deepen the faith of the people assigned to your pastoral care so they can help you recruit that congregation. Because we're living in cultural circumstances right now where the congregation isn't going to be self-forming.
Sure.
So those are some things that occur to me.
Yeah, you mentioned Pastoris Dabo Vobis. That's obviously been foundational for how seminaries are run and operate today. What were some other kind of highlights that stood out to you from that?
I think the fact that the Pope wrote a letter to priests every Holy Thursday when the Church marks the institution of the sacramental priesthood, the ministerial priesthood, was a very important sign. He would visit seminaries on his pastoral visits around the world. And the effects of this were just frankly colossal. I mean, I don't know a young man ordained between, say, the late 1980s and frankly now, who would not say that John Paul II was one of his inspirations in entering the seminary and seeking to be ordained a Catholic priest.